Come on, I'm going to say it like the old folk. You say, we trying to get all of our ducks in a row before we move. And then after we moved, the ducks was in a row, but nothing happened. See, it's better to move on God's timing with your ducks out of line than to think you know more than God. Notice Mark 5, verse 21. Now when Jesus had crossed over again by boat to the other side, a great multitude gathered to him, and he was by the sea. And behold, one of the rulers of the synagogue came, Jairus by name. And when he saw him, he fell at his feet and begged him earnestly or sincerely, saying, my little daughter lies at the point of death. Death being physical, it's almost over for her, Lord. She is at the point, or we would call it near the door of death. And if anybody's ever been around anyone who was near the door of death, it can sometimes have what we call telltale signs that this person, without a miracle, death is near. Amen. And notice what he says. His faith is already being exercised, even for him to seek the Lord out, knowing that she's at the point of death or near death. Yet he has enough belief to seek for Jesus. He didn't seek for anybody. He didn't seek for a physician. Jairus probably knew this is beyond what a physician can do. He has to seek help from the one who is above the physician. I got to say it like it's in me. He needs to seek help from the one who can do something that will astonish the physicians, that will baffle. Don't you know we serve a God who will do things that will astonish people who have been studying and practicing medicine for years, yet they cannot explain some things that God do. They don't have a book to explain it. Come on, somebody. We own it tonight now. And he begged him earnestly or sincerely, saying, my daughter lies at the point of death. Come and lay your hands on her. You see how he knew who Jesus was? Don't bring no medicine in it. Just come, lay your hands on her. Watch how he believes that she may be healed. And if you will lay your hands on her, he ain't told Jesus to say nothing. If you will just lay your hands on her. What if we had some saints like that? If you will just lay your hands on her, she will live. He had no doubt she'll live if you'll come. And if you'll lay your hands on her, I have no doubt that she'll live. So Jesus went with him. He got to be happy. And a great multitude followed him and thronged him. But then there is an interruption by a woman, according to the Gospel of Mark, which is really the Gospel of Peter, recorded by Mark. There's an interruption. Jesus began to deal with this woman who has been having an issue of blood. And Jesus, while speaking to this woman in verse 34, he speaks her healing upon her. He says to the woman in verse 34, daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace and be healed of your affliction. Now, while he's telling this to this woman, we pick back up with Jairus in his situation in verse 35. While he was still speaking, he's speaking to this woman. While he's speaking to this woman, some came from the ruler of the synagogue's house who said, your daughter is dead. We've been looking for you, Jairus. We know the search that you're on. We know what was in your heart to see get done Let me go back to the beginning. Or what you wanted to see manifest or come into fruition. He wanted his daughter well. He wanted his daughter to live. But while operating in faith, just something you got to understand about faith tonight as we're teaching. Faith is not a guarantee that you won't hear bad news. He's in faith. I've already established it. Yet he receives the opposite news of what he was desiring to hear. Your daughter, and it probably, Jairus probably paused when he said, your daughter, hoping to hear, she lives. But he gets the opposite. Sometimes when we are operating in faith, we will get the opposite, but it is not over. You got to know this, because this used to trip me up in my young days, because I said maybe I wasn't believing enough. Maybe it wasn't God's will for it to happen. No, you will get bad news even though you are in faith. Don't ever let nobody tell you different, because you're seeing it for yourself tonight. You better put your eyes on this scripture. While he was still speaking, some came from the ruler of the synagogue house who said, your daughter is dead. Not only is she dead, these folk obviously have no faith. No faith. Because they say to him, why trouble the teacher any further? Jairus, leave Jesus alone, because it's too late. She has expired. And let me tell you, with him being a ruler of the synagogue, you do not want to bring any ruler or person in a high position bad news that you really didn't check out. You really don't know what you're talking about. You heard it, or you thought she may be. No, this is a ruler of a synagogue. So the people who come into him have did all of their searching, all of their, I should say, investigation, and she has been pronounced dead. Could you imagine you got to take him that news? Ain't you going to ask the person, are you sure? Can I use an old term? She dead as a doorknob. Well, I go to him then. He said, she dead. Why trouble the teacher any further? Oh, don't you just love Jesus? Now, he was talking to the woman, but he still heard what was going on over there. As soon as Jesus heard the word that was spoken, he said to the ruler of the synagogue, do not be afraid, only believe. This word only means that something must be excluded. Some things must be left out. If we're only going to believe, then we have to know what needs to be excluded. What needs to be left out. What is there, pastor, that if I am to only believe, is there no room for in this equation of only believing? Number one is unbelief. If we're going to only believe, there is no room for unbelief. There is no room for doubt. There is no room for uncertainty. And finally, there is no room for fear. Even Jesus recognizes it when he says to Jairus, I know what you just heard, but do not be afraid. Do not fear, Jairus, that what was in your heart to see come to pass, don't be afraid that it will not come to pass. And so he says to him, only believe. I need you, Jairus, to get in a place where you only believe. Again, why is it only believe? Because unbelief is powerful. If you're taking note, it is only believe because of the power that exists in unbelief, or what unbelief can produce. Just like believing can produce or give birth to something, so can unbelief. Unbelief will bring about the very thing that we don't want to come about. And what comes about will have permanency attached to it because I did not believe. And it will not be changed or altered unless I only believe. If you're taking notes, it's also important that when Jesus says to Jairus, only believe, that means that it is Jairus' responsibility to exclude unbelief. This is important. It is his responsibility, if you're taking notes, to make sure that nothing or nobody interferes with his belief. I need to say that again. It's Jairus' responsibility. It is our responsibility when we're believing for something to make sure that nothing or nobody interferes with our belief. Whose responsibility is that? Mine. That's personal. That means pastor can't believe for you. Not in totality. I can believe with you. But if I join in and I'm believing with you, but you are allowing something to interfere with you believing, you may not get your miracle, not because I didn't believe, but because of who or what you allow to interfere with you believing. And this is the problem with a lot of people. They allow things as well as people to interfere with their belief. And you have to hold yourself responsible, even accountable for what you allow to interfere. What you allow to interfere. This is the reason when you're believing for something, you have to guard what is known as two gates, that you got to be careful what enters these two gates. Number one being your eye gate. When you're believing for something, be careful about what enters through the eye gate. Because there are certain things when you are believing that it or them do not need to be your primary focus. Come on, I know I'm teaching right. Because you can make certain things your focus and you'll actually take your eye off of what your eye needs to be on. You have to be careful what comes through the ear gate. Have to be careful what you hear. Not only what you hear, but what you allow what you hear to do to you. See, because sometimes we can't stop hearing certain things. But I am in control of what I just heard and what I'm willing to allow it to do to me and what I'm not willing to allow it to do. Come on, somebody. We teaching real good tonight. Because y'all know sometimes we hear things. And just like Jairus, sometime in the middle of believing, we hear the very thing we were praying and believing that we would not hear. But what is it going to do to you? What, I should say back up, what are you going to allow it to do to you? You heard it. And sometimes you can't stop what comes out of somebody else's mouth. But how will it affect you? What will it do to your believing? Will what you heard allow you to bring something in that was previously excluded? Will you allow doubt to now come in based upon what you heard or what you seen? See, it's up to you. Are y'all in the house tonight? Now, things and people will try to interfere. Whenever you're believing for something, and something or somebody seems to want to interrupt your faith or your belief, this is what I want you to understand tonight. That's normal. Relax. That's normal. It's normal for your faith to be tested. It's normal when I'm believing for something, yet something else is opposing what I believe. That's normal. That's normal. This happens when you are looking for God or expecting God is a better way to do what you know you can't do. And people need to be taught that when things seemingly go off track, you have to know, hey, that's normal. That's a part of this process of me receiving from God what he said I could have. This is all a part. Don't think it strange. You remember Peter in 1 Peter 4:12? He said, beloved, think it not what? Strange. Concerning what? The fiery trial. Hold up. Which is to what? Try you. It is to what? Try you. Try what? Your faith. It's going to try your belief. It's going to try what you said. It's going to try what you expecting. Are you truly expecting what you say you was expecting? It's normal for things and people to try to interfere. But back to what I said earlier, it's my responsibility not to allow anything to interfere with me only believing.